on your side. This is WHAS 11 News.
When your flagship program is facing the death penalty, it's time for you to move on.
And right now tonight at 5 o'clock is U of L Athletic Director Tom Jurich about to lose his job next. Majority of the coaches banding together, sending a letter to the interim president and the Kentucky governor. We'll have the latest on the continuing fallout of the FBI investigation.
Plus, all new here at 5, we're taking you inside the search for Kentucky lawyer and fugitive Eric Kahn. The new documents obtained by the I-Team that lays out an elaborate plan of escape.
And we love Chuck. Lost him way too young. 8 years after his death, we're continuing the legacy of Chuck Olmstead, our great friend who died from a brain aneurysm. Chuck's wife Candy is here with the annual Chuck Olmstead Memorial Fund, raising money for free brain scans. Call us 571-2345, 866-885-1848. But first here tonight, Tom Jurich's legacy is heralded in a new letter from several of the coaches he hired. Good evening, everyone. I'm Doug Proffitt.
And I'm Kayla Moody in for Rachel Platt. 15 of the school's head coaches, from volleyball to football, even the new men's head basketball coach, signed that letter of support.
It comes as the Board of Trustees will meet tomorrow about the future of the athletic director. WHAS 11's Tabney Dozier joins us more on that letter and who signed it. Tabney?
Well, it is a one-page letter, Doug and Kayla, that 15 of the 20-plus head coaches signed, highlighting accomplishments by Jurich and how important his work and continued work is to the University of Louisville and its student athletes. This is the letter signed by some of U of L's head coaches, including Bobby Petrino, Dan McDonnell, and newly appointed acting head men's basketball coach David Padgett, showing firm support for Tom Jurich. It says here, Tom emphatically believes that our student athletes come first.
Tom Jurich's loyalty to his coaches. Well, yeah, that's a good thing. However, when you're negotiating with them, it's not a loyalty issue. They're on the other side. You're supposed to get the best deal you can for your side, not do favors for your friends.
Louisville-based attorney Steve Romines believes the Board of Trustees will move forward with firing the athletic director, who has been on paid administrative leave since late September.
You know, they're moving on. They're trying to put, you know, this athletic administration, you know, and basketball program in the rearview mirror. And, you know, it's hard to do that if you keep the athletic director.
Here's a copy of Jurich's termination section in his contract. He's a university employee, and it does allow for Jurich to be fired with or without cause.
Well, they had Ramsey and his crew doing it, and Jurich and his crew doing Rick's, and so, you know, now it's time to pay the piper. I mean, if he gets fired for cause, he gets paid a year's salary. I mean, that really is unheard of.
The majority of the coaches, on the other hand, say Jurich's importance to the school is invaluable, writing, "We fervently believe that Tom's leadership has transformed the university and has molded thousands of student athletes who are now graduates of this great institution." His base salary without incentives and bonuses stands at $484,293. And if you add in incentives and bonuses, Jurich pulls in somewhere near $1.4 million. That Board of Trustees meeting is tomorrow afternoon. We will be there. Jurich's legal counsel was unavailable for comment by the time that we hit air. I'm Tabney Dozier, WHAS 11 News.
All right, thank you, Tabney. Are these letters and other campaigns by some Louisville business leaders enough to save Tom Jurich's job at U of L? The U of L sports beat writer Jeff Greer from our news partners at the Courier-Journal will join us live right here in our studio at 5:30. Stick around. You'll want to hear what Jeff has to say about this. And Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin has said that he's not so sure Tom Jurich's career is over at U of L. He actually said that in a radio interview just last week. But today he would not answer that question about Tom Jurich. Instead, he did hint as to when Kentuckians will see his plan to save the state pension plan. At the Kentucky Charter Schools bill signing event today, Bevin answered questions from WHAS 11's political editor Chris Williams, who asked him about that much anticipated plan and the proposal to pay for pensions with marijuana sales.
As the Commonwealth focuses on the pension crisis and awaits the governor's plan to fix the mess today, he celebrated here at the Capitol a plan that he pushed in the last legislative session, the Charter Schools bill. The Charter Schools law in effect now should see the creation of publicly funded, privately run schools during next school year. It was a victory for school choice advocates, including Governor Bevin, who now is about to undertake what should be his biggest challenge since taking office, revamping the pension system.
It's coming along great, and I expect it as soon as we're ready, which will be in the days immediately ahead. It's coming very soon. There's just a little bit of I-dotting and T-crossing. We're doing great.
How much time do you think Kentuckians will get to see it before their lawmakers vote on it?
They'll have plenty of time to look at it. And it's interesting, while there's 400 and something pages, there's really only a handful of pages that have the information itself. There's a lot of connecting of this document and this legislation to that one and this statute to that one. But the actual operative language is very simple. It's very straightforward. It's going to be easy for people to understand.
The plan will no doubt require billions more dollars in state funding annually. Governor Bevin scoffed at the proposal to pay for pensions by legalizing pot. Senator Syme has pushed the legalization of marijuana.
Yeah, that's
I know
not
you're
going to happen. Zero chance.
But the legislature has overridden vetoes.
I'd love to see that piece of legislation. Let me just say, the odds of that happening, not high, and all pun intended. I will say this, if you look at this, the proposal that this would generate $100 million, we have a $60 billion problem at least, probably bigger. That's 600 years of smoking pot to fix the pension crisis. I don't think that's the solution for Kentucky. We're going to fix it with constructive changes and not with delusional ideas.
It's clear new revenue will be needed after pension reform passes. The governor's staff says that paying for the pension plan will come in large part in tax reform expected next year. At the Capitol, Chris Williams, WHAS 11 News.
Chris, thank you. The teen convicted of shooting a student at Fern Creek High School in September 2014 will remain in prison. A judge last week denied 19-year-old Andre Banks' request for shock probation. You may recall Banks' probation was revoked earlier this year after prosecutors say he was found in possession of a handgun while on probation. Tonight, he remains in prison, serving an 18-year sentence. The Eastern Kentucky lawyer who swindled $500 million in Social Security money from many of you was part of an elaborate plan to escape being sentenced. Eric Kahn is now charged along with a former employee in new documents obtained by the 11 News I-team. Derek Rose has those new documents and information. And Derek, he is still at large. Do they have any idea where he may be?
At this point, if they are specifying, they're not specifying publicly. The last time we saw Eric Kahn's name and stories surface in headlines when the FBI sent us these surveillance images from a Walmart in New Mexico. Now, these newly unsealed indictments, we are learning how the FBI believes Kahn got from eastern Kentucky to the southwestern part of the country. The FBI had said all along it believed Kahn had help, and now we know who the feds believe provided that help. Person by the name the feds say is Curtis Lee Wyatt, one of Eric Kahn's former employees. The indictment, which was filed in early September but just unsealed and made public on Monday, says Wyatt opened a bank account for Kahn, and on 2 separate occasions Wyatt crossed into Mexico at pedestrian checkpoints to test the security procedures. The feds say Kahn also bought what's called a Faraday bag, which can block RF signals from being sent or detected from a particular device. Finally, the FBI says Wyatt bought a pickup truck with cash and registered it under a name of a dummy company, then drove that vehicle to eastern Kentucky so Kahn could make his escape undetected. The FBI says Kahn cut off his ankle monitor and dumped it into that Faraday bag and left it on the interstate in eastern Kentucky. The feds say Kahn sent money through that bank account outside the United States, but so far have not said whether they think Kahn actually crossed the border into Mexico. He is still on the run tonight. Kayla, we're going to keep looking through this indictment coming up new at 6, the role of another alleged accomplice and the reward you at home could earn for information helping catch Eric Kahn. For the 11 News I-team, I'm Derek Rose, WHAS 11 News.
All right, Derek, thank you. Some major revelations there. Well, brain aneurysms are known as the silent killer, causing nearly 500,000 deaths around the world each year. We're working to help promote awareness to the signs of aneurysms and stroke. An aneurysm happens when an artery's wall weakens and causes an abnormally large bulge that can rupture and cause internal bleeding. Many times there are no obvious symptoms until it's too late. But if you have dilated pupils, changes in vision or pain behind the eye, and weakness, numbness, or paralysis on one side of the face, get to a doctor right away. Chuck Olmstead, a longtime WHAS 11 reporter, suddenly died from an aneurysm in 2009. So tonight, we're helping raise money for his memorial fund until 6:30 right here on air. And Doug is in our other studio to tell us more. Doug, how are things going over there?
It's going really well, Kayla. Thank you so much. About $1,000 raised so far. 571-2345, 866-885-1848. You know, I loved Chuck. He was a towering figure, about 6 feet tall. And on this glorious day on the way into the station, I took a photograph this afternoon right outside our building. We get to see this every day when we pull in here. We renamed the street Chuck Olmsted Way. Let's show you that picture. I've got it here to show it to you here today. Right after Chuck died, we got the street sign changed with the help of Jerry Abramson and the David Tandy, the Metro Councilman there, and we see it every day. We'll pull that picture up here in just a minute. There it is. Look at that sky right behind it. One of our favorite pictures of Chuck in his leather jacket there as we honor him, and that is right alongside the WHAS building. Candy Olmsted is joining me now, and Candy, we're in our 8th year of doing this, and you're going to have the brain scans free for everybody Sunday 10 to 3 at the fairgrounds. Last year, what was the turnout? You saved some lives last year.
Yes, we did. We have about 150 from last year, and please, you have to register. I cannot take people that don't register because I only have one machine this year because of all of the horrific weather all over the country. So Alliance Imaging, who gives us a MRI machine or the MRI machines, couldn't only give me one this year. They couldn't give me two because, you know.
How should folks register then?
You need to go on to your computer, go into info at chuckolmstedmemorialfund.com.
Okay.
Go
to the website.
Go to the website there, and then it will say pre-registration.
And the money that you raise, we want to emphasize to folks, Candy is surrounded here by her friends, longtime friends. They're so close they could be family. You don't pay any money. You take this money and you give it right to the effort to get these screenings. I
do. I feel that when you have a nonprofit and people volunteer their money, then you need to do with the money what you say you're going to do. And so I give the money back to the community. It is very expensive. I don't hear the phones ringing as much as I would like. I know that it's rough. If you can just give $1, $5, anything you can give will help us to continue this nonprofit agency that I have, or project, I'd rather say, and so we can have some money so we can do this again next year.
He was a fun spirit. He was hired here in 75, and in 78, I was a high school intern at WHAS, just turned 16, and they assigned me to Chuck. They said, your job is to be Chuck's intern, and I sat there at his desk, and we got mail back then, and the mail would arrive daily, nearly towering above the newsroom, and the phone calls, the man couldn't walk through Kroger without somebody pulling on him.
That's right. He had done this, they had gave him a title of Don't Do It Alone.
Action reporter.
Action reporter, that was it, and called Chuck Olmsted. And no matter where he went, all over the city, whether it be here, Indiana, or or Tennessee even, they would say, there he is, the action reporter. So yes.
And he had that great Boston brogue. He'd always say, Melissa, back to you. And of course, Kayla, you'd be Kayla, back to you. 571-2345-866-885-1848. Give this great cause anything you can, as we're going to do the free brain scans coming up this Sunday. Kayla, back to you.
All right, Doug, thank you so much. Well, administrators for West Clark schools have made their message clear, saying voters need to okay a referendum for a list of school improvements. But at least one school board member saying not so fast inside the argument brewing in southern Indiana, coming up at 5:30. And NFL players continue to kneel during the anthem, a controversy that's dominated headlines this season. The NFL owners taking up the issue in their fall meeting happening right now. Coming up next.
And wow, wherever we point the camera, it's a beautiful picture out there. Lots of sunshine for the rest of today and for the rest of the week as well. And some nice temperatures too, comfortable 60s. We have another cold night ahead, but we do have some warmer October sunshine to talk about coming up in your complete Storm Team forecast.
Just into our newsroom, Rick Pitino has filed a lawsuit against Adidas. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Kayla Moody in for Rachel Platt.
And I'm Doug Proffitt. The story continues to widen at this very hour. Pitino is now claiming damages caused by the apparel company's dealings with recruits. This comes as 15 of the school's 21 head coaches, including interim coach David Padgett, signed a letter to Dr. Postal and the governor announcing their support, their gratitude for athletic director Tom Jurich. They highlighted the AD's accomplishments and stressed the importance of his work. It was a one-page letter that carried plenty of weight. Will this support, along with several community members' show of support as well, be enough to convince the trustees? Well, joining us live to talk about all that is the Courier-Journal's beat reporter for U of L, Jeff Greer. Joined us here before. We ought to talk about the breaking news. He goes after a company that until yesterday was paying him a pretty substantial personal services contract and had announced a big deal with the university. Is there a disconnect here? What's going on, do you think, with this?
Well, I think what we're seeing is Rick Pitino is trying to basically start firing at everybody. I mean, I think the lawsuit for U of L will be coming soon, I would think, for breach of contract. And we're seeing Adidas is now in the crosshairs for them.
And we have a copy of that lawsuit right here. Certainly not mincing words. It says Pitino had nothing to do with Adidas's outrageous, wrongful, and illegal conspiracy. That's the wording from that lawsuit right there.
Yeah, they're basically arguing in this lawsuit that Adidas and these wrong actors, these bad actors, set him up, basically, is how I read that in the 30 seconds that we had to scan it here.
And of course, but the FBI, we're saying is, we're hearing reports, of course, and Steve Pence confirmed it yesterday that Rick Pitino is coach too. That he made his whole defense at U of L yesterday as coach too. I'm sure the viewers are sitting and wonder, well, wait a second, isn't he being accused of being a part of the conspiracy?
Yeah, the one thing that's sort of confusing about the Coach 2 stuff in the complaint is that there's really it's sort of circumstantial evidence around Coach 2 and whether or not there was any specific wrongdoing with him. They kind of circle around him without truly pointing to anything specifically that he did wrong. It just looks bad, I guess, is the way, it would seem to most people. But I think right now they're hoping that they can kind of use that innuendo in the FBI complaint to get as much out of this situation as they can before the bad news keeps coming, I guess.
You know, tomorrow the focus switches to Tom Jurich. What are his chances for keeping his position? He has certainly probably more support, more public support than Rick Pitino did.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is a little bit muddier than Rick Pitino. I think first and foremost, he understands, how to work this community. He's gotten these big name donors to come out in support of him. But you don't mess with David Grissom. At least that's what I've been told, the chairman of the Board of Trustees. And so it seems like they're probably in Grissom's corner. We've seen a lot of jostling. One thing to maybe keep an eye on tomorrow is what if they just don't make any decisions tomorrow and delay it, then this thing will drag on longer.
Do you expect Tom Jurich to come in and make an impassioned plea for his job? He has been very emotional in many news conferences in the past when he brought Bobby Petrino back defending Rick Pitino. Do you think he thinks, if I could do it myself, I'll show up?
You know, I wonder if he's a little too proud for that. I wonder if he's not going to be perceived as sort of like, kind of grousing for his job. I think he may kind of let the arguments that have been made through the media, through some of the media outlets that are closely tied with him, and some of the people who back him have kind of made the arguments for him. So he may not even show up. Maybe his lawyers will be there. We'll see.
All right. Any big articles coming out? Do you want to?
There's always something. Just go to courierjournal.com. Every single day there is something, if not, a bunch of stuff that you can read.
All right.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. From our news partners at the Courier-Journal, Jeff Greer. Follow his work there. A proposed $95 million referendum that would impact 4,750 students in 9 schools in southern Indiana is causing quite the controversy that is splitting communities and pitting neighbor against neighbor tonight. As WHAS11's Holden Kerwicki tells us why this back and forth debate has some questioning if improvements in your child's education are really worth it.
Roughly 15 miles separates the 3 West Clark community schools of Borden, Silver Creek, and Henryville. But there's an even bigger divide amongst taxpayers when considering a $95 million bond aimed at improving each school.
This referendum is to set up our youth for the future and their children and their children's children.
What they want to do is virtually impossible.
At the center of the controversy is how the majority of the funding will be allocated to one school, Silver Creek.
You've got kids that share lockers, you've got teachers on carts. I think there's 14 teachers that don't have a classroom. Do I think it's a perfect plan? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But it's a step in the right direction.
With one school clearly benefiting more than the others, taxpayers like Kevin Guernsey say the $95 million price tag is a tough sell.
We're getting ready to put $150 a month debt service tax, $150 a month on top of the tax they're presently paying, and that could make people lose their houses.
Yes, property taxes will go up, but it's an investment. That's the way that I look at it. It's an investment in our kids. It's an investment in the school system.
For school needs, you borrow money and pay interest. For wishes, out-of-district transfers, dreams, wants, you do not borrow money and pay interest.
It's this back and forth debate that has some wondering what would happen if the referendum fails.
There are some people out there that are going to want to see Silver Creek succeed from the corporation and become a standalone school community.
All three communities will buy into that, believe me. If the governor can come down and say we're all separate, we'll make all three communities happy, believe me.
If you'd like to share your thoughts on the bond referendum, there is a community input session tonight at Henryville High School starting at 6:30. In Sellersburg, Holden Kerwicki, WHAS 11 News.
And by the way, WHAS 11's Heather Fontaine is heading to that meeting. To continue our coverage, you'll see her story and the results tonight on 11 at 11.
Potential relief for diabetics. Researchers could help you get rid of that injection. What's being studied coming up.
And we're raising money tonight for free brain screens and scans to detect brain aneurysms. It's what killed our Chuck Olmstead 8 years ago. His wife Candy keeping his legacy alive by giving back to Kentuckiana. Call us now at 571-2345 or 866-885-1848. We'll give you an update next. And then all new at 6, the new development today in the case of an Elizabethtown doctor who was dragged off that United Airlines flight. Why 2 security officers have lost their jobs. The details ahead at 6.